Alright,
Yeah.
welcome. This is Let's Play Stellaris. I am Shichinobushi.
I'm CirclMastr.
I'm HerrTog.
Alright, and this is a pre-recording. It's going to go at its own pace, I suppose. For now, there's just enough intro. Stellaris is a sci-fi 4X grand strategy game by Paradox. Going to start a new game here. Over here you see some of the pre-generated and some of the empires that I've created. These over here are the ones that I made. You can create a new one or just start with a random one if you're not really very creative, or just want to go with anything. This is just an intro, so I'm just going to go with the standard United Nations of Earth. Just going humans, bland, boring.
We adapt to everything, we repopulate like roaches, right?
Not quite. There's a better feature for that. For now, I'm just showing on many of the multiple points of personalization to each of them. Right now, we're looking at the various portraits you could have for your species. This is just purely aesthetic. It has no mechanical benefit or anything like that. It's just however you want your empire to look. There are different categories. Humanoid, which includes the normal humans. One I just played at is a bonus one I got from the Nova version, I believe, that I purchased. Then down here, the plantoids is another additional one you have to purchase.
Shichi, I have to admit,
Otherwise, the rest of them are just...
I'm already overwhelmed. That's amazing.
Yes. And this is another detail you can put in them: the name, the plural version, the adjective version, and this box I'm pointing at is just a little flavor backstory you could write up, but it only shows up on this screen. Hardly ever shows up even in your multiplayer. It's just whatever you want for personalization. So, then you have the different name sets you can choose.
So with all this personalization, how come this does not accurately reflect the fact that Earth is run by lizard people?
You could change it that way if you want. You could have exactly Earth in our solar system run by lizard people.
Could you also make the symbol into the true Illuminati symbol?
I will get to that in a moment. I don't recall if there's an Illuminati symbol available, but I'm clicking through the various name lists. You could even choose a prefix that will go to your be appended to your ships. Now we're into the actual mechanical stuff. This is your racial species traits. This is how it is for the humans. They are adaptive. They could kind of go anywhere. They're nomadic. They like to go wherever, but they are wasteful. You could have, as I click out these, you can have a total of 2 trait points and 5 traits. They're positive and negative traits if you want to min-max your race. And for now, I'm just hovering over each of them.
I think to accurately reflect goons, we need to add deviant.
I think there is a deviant. I don't recall if it's still... Oh yeah, it's a negative modifier. It means they are only happy if they have slaves. Or at least they're not unhappy if there are slaves. And some of these are in mutually exclusive groups. You cannot, for example, you can't have strong, and that would exclude very strong and weak. And as I hovered over many of them, so anybody that is watching can pause through and look at what any of the modifiers do. So they can, as what I intend to do, is let viewers decide what kind of empire we're running, or possibly even create some rival empires to be forced to spawn in the galaxy.
Like goons.
Now we're into another flavor, just details of our ruler. You can choose a name, the ruler title, and if it was a hereditary empire, you can choose the heir title. Then there are different the different details for the appearance for the specific ruler, and I'm flipping through the different rooms that you could have appear on your diplomatic screen.
So are you able to add your own icons to this, or do you have to use the ones that come with the game?
I am not sure. There will be quite a few icons. Now we're customizing the home world. They're in 3 different sets of dry, wet, and frozen. There are a total of 9. And how that works is that if you are native to one in a specific group, you have not preferable habitability with one within the same group. That means how well people live on those planets. But you would have any of the other groups are nearly uninhabitable. But you could terraform a planet into a different type. There are 2 other types of habitable planets that weren't visible there. And this is another level of just visual customization, just how your city in the background looks. Now we're in another major mechanical. This is how your government works. Now on the far left, you have your ethics. You have a total of 3 points you can invest in each of these. And I will hover over these to show what they are. They are militaristic, xenophobe, egalitarian, materialistic, pacifist, xenophile, authoritarian, and spiritualist, and each of them has a fanatic version. And these are also diametrically opposed with the one that's directly across from them. For example, the militarists are opposite the pacifists. And another option is to be a hive mind. And these are the different authority types. There's democratic, oligarchic, dictatorial, imperial, and hive minds. And then on the far right, we have the civics, which will be another major point of mechanical benefits for each of your empire. And again, hovering, pointing at each of them to show off the details. Each of them.
Can you get
Imperial cult? I can smell the Warhammer 40k coming.
Oh, it
out
is.
of the thread.
Can you see citizen service just below it?
We must ensure that human, non-insect, is the dominant species in the galaxy.
Purge the heretic.
Yes,
fear the alien.
Yes, you could choose. As I said, you can have 3 points to do for your ethics, which they could be either 1 normal and 1 fanatic, or you could do 3 normal ones, or you could have just hive mind. And that shows off another set. And how hive mind works, one of the major benefits of it is that happiness is no longer an issue. The happier individual pops are, the more productive they are. If they're unhappy, they're less productive and prone to revolt and cause problems.
By the way, as you keep playing,
But
do you get more civic points?
Yes, there is one technology you can get that lets you get a 3rd civic. And this is another detail of visual customization of how your emblem right there looks. And just clicking through all the different sets.
I like how one is called...
You could probably go with one of those triangular ones if you want to be Illuminati. And then you can choose the pattern of the colors and the different primary and secondary colors. Then we have our starting weapons. You can have projectile weapons, which are like mass drivers and railguns, energy weapons, which are lasers, or missile weapons, which are self-propelled. The benefits of each of them is projectile weapons are good against energy shields and not so good against hulls, while energy weapons are so the opposite of that. They don't go so well against shields, but deal a lot of damage to hulls. Then missile weapons are almost perfectly accurate and can be fired from a long range, but they can be countered by point defense systems, and certain strike craft. And then we have our FTL method. The weapons, you could research the other ones, but once you choose your FTL method, you're kind of stuck with that until you find you research some of the more advanced, significantly advanced types. The warp travel, you could travel from one point to any other point within a specific range. It is relatively slow because there is a cooldown after you jump out. The hyperspace travel, you're limited to a specific network of hyperlanes you can go to, but it is comparatively faster because the travel time itself is rather quick, and there is no cooldown after you get out. As long as you have a direct path, you can get somewhere really fast. Then wormhole travel, you have to construct wormhole stations, and you can only travel to or from these stations, but the range from that station is rather large. And there is a large time for creating a wormhole, but travel is pretty much instantaneous.
And once you pick one, you cannot research the other later.
No. Though if you have researched something other than hyperlanes, you can research something that lets you see the grid of the hyperlane connect network, mainly for strategic purposes. And then those are just how each of our ships looks. And then this is the summary screen, just to look at. And there's a predetermined, pre-created backstory for them. But from here, we will go into generating the galaxy. These are different details you can customize for your single-player, multiplayer session. You could have a huge map up to all these different sizes. Then it could be generated in different shapes. The ring is pretty self-explanatory. It's a ring of clusters of stars centered on the center of the galaxy. Then there's the elliptical, where everything's almost evenly distributed, hardly any gaps or spaces. Then you have the spiral, where you have two thick arms spiraling outward from the center, but with some gap of space between them. Then you can finally, there's the four-armed spiral, which the arms are kind of narrower, but there's still a decent amount of space. Then you can choose the number of AI empires. How many of them are advanced? Start out more advanced technology than you do. Then there are fallen empires, which are really, really advanced ones that you can almost, unless you're in the end game or have a whole lot of support, you do not want to go after. But they usually just tend to stay to themselves. Then there's how many habitable worlds are available, restricting the FTL methods available, whether empires start clustered together or just randomly distributed, whether any of those advanced empires are nearby, then whether there will be endgame crises. And there are currently 3 different endgame crises in the game. I will not get into detail what any of them could be, but there could only be one at a time in any game session. Once that's done, whatever. Then there's Iron Man mode, whether you're going to be restricted to one save and it will auto-save regularly, or whether you're able to save however much you want and reload a game. So it's ready to start. Let's press play.
What kind of Chivos are you going to go for?
Well, you turned off Iron Man mode, you can't get Chivos.
Oh.
Nope, can't get achievements. It's not an Iron Man, but I don't care in this case. Then once you start, there's a little brief history of your empire. And as it's paused, I will show off the various details of the screen. And here we are starting in the solar system on Earth. You can see any of the other familiar planets. And starting over here, just a government summary screen, just to show a few details, any modifiers that are currently going on. You could check the if you have the appropriate government type, you can check the election review. Once we have enough political influence, you can change the government, checking the budget, and pop effects. We're entirely human, but we can potentially have other alien residents. And if we had more systems, yes, this is a paradox game.
So if we zoom in on Earth, will it drop us into Europa Universalis?
No, it would be Hearts of
no. You're briefly looking at the different empires, but we only know of us. Here's the situation log, which is where we find any quests. Since we are a democracy, our leader has provided a mandate, and it wants us to create research stations. This is the technology panel. We have 3 different types of technology. We've got physics, society, engineering. This guy, the have leaders. The one with the physics is a maniacal scientist. It has a decent bonus to research progress. There's some other hidden benefits. For now, I'm going to select different technologies. I'm going to start with the solar panel network, which is a module you could apply to your orbital stations.
Will that let us eventually build a Dyson sphere?
You can potentially make a Dyson sphere, but that will be very late in the game.
Aww. Can you overthrow other governments? By, like, political
how do you mean?
Subterfuge.
Sadly, there is no espionage in the game at this time. You can go to war and create vassals, or maybe completely claim another empire's territory, but nothing to really do anything about that. Now we're looking at our planets. If we had more planets, we could create a sector, which is sort of autonomously run area of space. This is our policies and ethics screen. Policies are different options you can choose, though you can choose any of them at any time, but once you set them, you have to wait about 10 years to change it back. And I'm opening each one of them to show each of the options.
So just real quick, because I think it might have gotten skipped over. What is our win
Yes.
con? Are we trying to wipe everybody else out? Are we trying to conquer a certain amount? Are we trying to like research victories? What is our victory conditions?
There are 2 major victory conditions I can recall. I'm not exactly certain about the details of the second one, but I know that one of them is to control, either directly or through vassals, about 40% of the galaxy, habitable worlds in the galaxy. Though there is a similar one to that, which is if we were in a federation, if our federation collectively controls 60%. Some of these policy options are unavailable depending on your government's ethics and other details. For example, we're not an authoritarian or xenophobic government, so slavery is not allowed at all.
I can dig it.
And neither is to purge, which is to just kill off your own population or just kick them out. And another option before was that we could not have full orbital bombardment on planets because we are not a military government. Then we have ethics, which are just toggleable bonuses, but each of them has a monthly political influence cost. Currently, our leader has a reduced cost for each of these. Normally they'd be 1 influence each, but they're now 0.9. Now we have factions. That doesn't really matter right now since we have none. And we have strategic resources. We have none right now. They're then species. We only have the humans, but this sort of continues the policies sort of description, because each species within your empire can have different policies associated with their relationships, such as what level of citizenship they would have. Like if you have everyone's full citizen, or you could have a caste system, or this species is entirely slaves. Then we have living conditions. Higher living conditions, such as chemical bliss, or just a utopian abundance, makes them more happy, but they have a higher consumer resources cost, which would be a penalty to your minerals. And you have military service, whether you could recruit them as soldiers or even as military leaders. Then you have colonization rights, whether they can form new colonies. And then this last one is available as migration controls, whether they're, if you have another colony, whether they're free to just on their own just move to another colony. These two I can't look at because neither slavery or purging is available. And another option on the screen is to genetically modify this species. We have not unlocked that technology yet, though. Now we're looking at leaders. There are 4 different types of leaders. There's governors, which run planets and sectors. Scientists, which we were looking at earlier, are in charge of technology research, or they could be stationed on a science ship and explore the galaxy, survey planets. Then you have admirals, which you can put in charge of the military, navy, the fleet, those ships, or generals, which are in charge of the armies which invade and defend planets. Each leader has different traits that they could have. There's some of them are common, such as those ones that are just the experience boost. Some of them are specific. And this is the screen to recruit new leaders, which would cost political influence. I'm not going to bother with that right now. Resilient is another common trait that any leader could have. They live longer. Each leader has a lifespan. I think normally it's about 70 years that they're likely to live. They can live longer. It's just that each amount of time after that, there's a chance they will die. Then you will have to recruit a new one. Now we're on the traditions tree. If you are familiar with Civilization 5, this is similar to culture and civics.
Oh, okay.
You'll collect unity. Once that bar fills up, you could choose another tradition tree to go into. Which, like with the civics, you would open up the tree first, and then you would choose each of the options within the tree.
You're getting me dangerously close to buying this game right now.
Another benefit is once you've completed one of them, you could choose an Ascension perk. And these are all the different ones. Somebody mentioned a Dyson Sphere before. There's a specific Ascension perk that you would have to get before you could create a Dyson Sphere. I believe that would be Galactic Wonders down at the bottom.
What other kind of things would that allow you to make?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. What was that again?
Oh, what other things can Galactic Wonders allow you to make?
Another would be a... forget the name of it. I saw one earlier today, but it's something that creates a whole lot of science research. And there's a something for greater sensor range. Looking at the ship designer, this is another major detail of customization. You could design your own ships once you've researched certain technology. You choose different weapons from the type. We only have missiles right now. Then there are utility ones, which are these reactors or shields or plating, other general stuff. And you could also, we only have the one option on the Corvette, but you could have different ship sections. Corvettes only have one. The larger military ships have more sections, such as this defensive platform. The other set into different groups. These you could just build in the middle of space, but they are immobile and can't go anywhere, but they will defend that area.
Can we make Death Stars?
Sadly, no.
What? Not even a not copyright infringing version of a Death Star?
Like a Death Cube?
Nope, nothing like that. Sorry.
Now I'm going back to
Now we're looking at the different... Yeah, now we're looking at the different resources. Energy credits are sort of a collective of energy and currency. I think it implies that it's an energy-based economy. The energy credits are generally used for upkeep. Everything usually costs some amount of energy credits per month. Then you have minerals, which are more often used as your bulk resource when you make purchases. Anything will cost such and such amount of minerals just to start building them. Though some things require minerals upkeep. Then we have food. It's what you need to keep your population alive. You could have a certain amount stored. You could change the amount that maximum amount you would have stored. Any surplus would just go to the stockpile, and once that's capped, any surplus will be used to increase population growth. Then over here you have the political influence. That is purchased for many things, such as the edicts, which is just a monthly cost. It's for recruiting new leaders, colonizing planets. And you have unity, which is just accumulated and then spent for traditions. Then you have the three different scientific researches. Each of them has a specific theme to them. Then you have the strategic resources. And next to that is how many planets you control, and the maximum you could efficiently control. You could have more than that maximum, but there will be a penalty. And much the same, there's a naval capacity that you could go over, but again, there's a penalty to the upkeep.
I have to assume that those can go up, and we're not stuck to 3 planets in the entire galaxy.
Yes, certain researches or other things can increase the core systems you can control. Any more than that, you could put within the sectors, and which will be autonomously controlled, and you can't directly control them at all. But you have more planets. You have. Then you have details on the planet screen. Planets also have specific edicts. Unlike them, they have a initial cost that will for investing in them, but once they turn on, they're on for some amount of time, usually 10 years, and will provide a bonus benefit to that planet. Here's the surface screen. You have a certain number of tiles on each planet, often arranged in a square. And clicking on one of the tiles, you show the that's currently populating that tile and working it, as well as the specific details. It's also a screen where you can set species rights. Then the details of the building on that tile. Space Lab is producing science in all 3 types. And different things you can do with it. Then you have the terrain. Most terrains can't provide a resource on them. And building sort of according to them adds to it. But if this tile was produced something like food, the lab would actually suppress that. this tile is the planetary administration. You can see it's a planet unique tile. You could only have one of these on the planet. There are also empire unique tiles, empire unique buildings. There can only be one of those at that planet. And some buildings, such as the Capitol building, have adjacency bonuses, which is increasing the output of each of these neighboring tiles. And some of these tiles have tile blockers on them. That's what the yellow and black ones are. Your starting capital planet has a few of these. You can just spend some resources to get rid of them. There are some that you would find on other planets that would instead have a red and black border that you'll have to research a technology to get rid of. Then we have the armies tab. This is what you look at when regarding recruiting armies or when invading other planets. You start out with 5 defensive armies, but you could also recruit assault armies. One of the main differences between them is that assault armies cannot leave the planet. I mean, defense armies can't leave the planet, but assault armies can. There are others that you will get. You could recruit as you research. This is the spaceport. These are the details of the spaceport itself. It has some combat stats. It is also where you construct ships, and they have a certain number of module slots. We have no modules we can build right now. This is the screen to construct any more ships or to upgrade the station itself.
By the way, what's the measure of time in this?
Sorry, that was the end of the video, because I was pretty much done with the tutorial stuff. I was going to move on to the...
Okay, I'll stop recording if that's cool.